Welcome to Brands Hatch for the 2021 Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe. This is the fourth of the 5 sprint championship rounds, and we've done free practice, tick. We've done pre-qualifying, tick, and now first of 2 20-minute qualifying sessions. We'll define the grids for both of tomorrow's races, and it's going to be divided by not hundreds of seconds, I think thousands of seconds. Get it slightly wrong and you're going to be starting way down on this grid. Fantastic circuit, the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, John, but if you qualify near the back, you've got your work really cut out.
I mean, I think it goes without saying, looking at 23.2, that's not too bad for a track temperature, 19 ambient. Track conditions are pretty good in terms of overall conditions, but it is probably the most critical race in the season because of the difficulty in overtaking, and therefore the pressure that's put on teams and drivers to perform in these 2 20-minute qualifying sessions. This is going to be a wild ride for the entire 28-car field, Bruce.
And they're looking at the sky. Look how these black clouds are hanging over Brands Hatch. The fans, great to have them back. They're sitting in their deck chairs. They're not wearing raincoats. That is a good thing. But these clouds, we've just had them hitting the far end of the circuit in pre-qualifying. Not the start-finish bit, but it's such a tricky track. John, talk us around it.
It's 2.433 miles, 3.916 kilometers, 9 principal corners. There are a couple of little curves and whatever, but it is a proper old school. It's virtually a road circuit. The racetrack is as wide as any racetrack in the world, but the sides of the racetrack are very close to the sides of the race, to the barriers, and then you've got an areas coming down from Stirling's down into Clearways, for example. You're running down what is perceptually a very narrow avenue. It's because the trees on the other side are folding in as if they're going to make just join together. But it is a wonderful atmosphere. It's a wonderful racetrack. Everybody who comes here loves the challenge, and they know when they go into qualifying they are going to have to perform, because if you don't get the grid position you believe you're capable of. Now that's the view coming down Pilgrim's Drop and then into Hawthorne. That's actually quite wide compared to some of the other bits. It creates this perception that it's a narrow track. It's not narrow. It's the standard width of any racetrack around the world.
But I think the drivers, if you can qualify in pole position here, not just important for the race, but I mean, you get a real feather in your cap because you've got to be so precise. Almost nowhere on the circuit, apart from that run we just saw from Pilgrim's Drop up to Hawthorne's, is in a straight line. They're almost always adjusting, and then you've got the gradient change mixed in. But looking down at the pit lane, hopefully we'll have all 28 cars coming out. In pre-qualifying, the 159 Aston Martin didn't come out to play, but it's going to be super tight. We're going to have overall pole, of course, then the bragging rights if you're best in the Silver Cup class, and the Pro-Am battle. We'll see how high one of those runners can go. And don't forget, Johnny Adam put a Pro-Am car on pole for the second of the races last time out at Misano. But there is the view. It's brightening up in the pit lane. That is good news. Literally the 5 minutes since the start of the programme. And there's the McLaren, the one McLaren. That's from the local team from Jota. Expect some good speed from this car for Ben Barnicoat.
Yes, I mean, they're flying the flag for the McLaren brand. They're the only McLaren in the race. They don't have the benefit of other McLaren users and then the crossover of information. So they're doing the work all by themselves. We know this car's been a quick car, a great finish in the Spa 24. I think they finished in 6th overall. That was a superb result. What can they do here? What can anybody do? This car, number 6, that was the quickest car when we saw that 1-hour session earlier this afternoon come to a conclusion. It's all ultimately about the time you put on the best set of rubber you have, whether it's a brand new set or some of the carryover tyres from Spa 24 Hours.
And one of the things I just want to point out so far in this meeting, having a Mercedes seems to have been a good thing. The ASP team had their cars, 3 of them, all up at the front end. Then they've been superseded by that number 6 Top Sport car, plus Ricardo Feller, who was 3rd fastest in pre-qualifying, in by far the quickest of the Lamborghinis. The Audis just at the tail end of the top 10. But is the story going to be the same come the end of this qualifying session? I think not, because what we didn't see was who put new rubber on to set those quick times in those practice sessions. A little bit stop-start as well, which always obscures the story. But it looks like the first car that's going to be coming out onto the circuit is the Interloper this weekend from Ram Racing. And that's a car that's being shared this weekend by Kevin C, a driver from Macau, and Adam Christodoulou. And there it is, the blue-pink car coming out to get the field round to go qualifying.
I mean, it's easy to say, oh, we think Mercedes are going to dominate the front row or 2 rows of the grid, but this is real stick the tail on the donkey time. Nobody knows, and it will not just be about how you use your Pirelli rubber, new set, best of the rest. It's when you get that opportunity. Can you get that one single clear lap that allows you, when the car and tyre are at their peak, to put in that performance, to put your team car on the front row of the grid. Pole position alongside doesn't really matter. It's getting into turn one. Paddock, hill bend, notorious for start line incidents into that sort of blind apex and the plunge down. It's like you're jumping out of a ski box trying to do an alpine ski race, and then the compression at the bottom as the car then kicks up towards Druids. I mean, an amazing start to any motor race, one that inevitably will see a level of contact somewhere normally in the midfield.
And from the midfield into the gravel trap, of course the track drops away, as you point out, John, into that compression. Now, the Bentleys really haven't shown any particular form. Both of them from CMR coming out onto the circuit. Track position very, very important in the race, most certainly, but also in qualifying. And if anybody wants to do something, they need to have clear track in front of them. It seems absolutely obvious, but look at Brands Hatch. There isn't a lot of space to make your way around. Yusuf Oaxaca in the number 7 Mercedes has got clear track. He was one of the first cars out of the pits. In fact, he's the first one over the start-finish line. So this is going to be his best shot. I pointed out the Mercedes were at the top of the charts, but didn't say it with confidence that they can come in and do it in qualifying.
Problem is, he's going to meet traffic that's on its outlap. He needs cooperation from those cars. They need to stay off the racing line. They need to give everybody, because you know what comes around or goes around comes around. If you're not considerate to your fellow competitors, they may well remember next time around you could be the one that loses out. So the number 7 Mercedes into, and well, obviously quickest of anybody, the first car to go into that first sector, 27.0. We'll have a look and see what happens as the rest of the field filters through. In the meantime, flashing the lights, telling the of course, a Ferrari, I'm on a flying lap, please think about me, let me have the chance to get through.
Right, the first car we saw out of the pits is actually reported back into the pits. Kevin C, the driver from Macau in that Ram Racing Mercedes, having it checked over, but of course, don't forget, he has a lack of experience here. Don't expect him to be at the front end. He just doesn't want to drop the ball because there's so little time before the second qualifying, and he's going to hope that Adam Christodoulou can do something very good indeed. So the first time on the board, Lucas Stoltz, 1 minute 32.112 seconds, waiting to see what Yusuf Oaxaca can do. But look, what you don't want is right there. It's traffic.
And he's caught behind Louis Michels, and I think the 52 Ferrari, his lap has been spoiled. And look behind the Mad Panda. Was that Rick Roykos?
No, Perish Compagne.
Okay, Perish Compagne. So 2 cars that are on potentially very strong laps. Right now it's Lucas Stoltz who's given the fastest lap. Now Ezekiel Perez Compact has improved on that by 1.7 seconds, and it's all kicking off. It's all going crazy. People are looking for space on a racetrack. People are trying to get out of the way. People are getting in the way, and on it goes.
Well, that number 7 Mercedes in a 6-car gaggle, and certainly was it a low-hanging cloud? No, someone had kicked up the dust going wide out of Paddock Hill Bend. They won't be the last person to be doing that. Right, Konstantin Tereshchenko has got a Mercedes at the top of the charts. 1 minute 25.4 versus Julian Apostolos in the 1 Porsche. That'll make you happy, John, in second place for Allied Racing. And another of those Mercedes, Petrul Morescu, the driver from Romania, third quickest. Mercedes, Porsche, Mercedes, better the Audis, the newcomer Max Hoffer this weekend.
Yes, those laps have all been achieved on that first flying lap, which is pretty much par for the course, but they're not necessarily the cars that we would anticipate to be there, and that's because certainly 2 of them we saw got delayed with traffic. Here we are on board the 88, and this is a car we think has got all the capacity, but it's Timo Boguslawski behind the wheel as opposed to Raffaele Marcello. Boguslawski will do a strong job for the ASP Mercedes. Wait and see, is this his out lap, or is this coming up to the conclusion? If it's a conclusion of a flying lap, he's had clear road. Right now, it's the Bentley's gone quickest, and it's going on to a flying lap for Boguslawski's third place, in fact.
Yeah, talked about the Roussel being impressive, was a sports car racer, now a GT racer with great skill. But right, Patrick Kujla and Yusuf Oaxaca, they've got an extra lap on the board. They've now gone to the top of the chart, so it keeps on changing. The 33 car, the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari, one of the last cars out of the pits, has gone fastest. But in doing that, on its outlap, rather blocked other drivers who are trying to make their first flyer. So you've got to make space. Some have done, front end, really not wanting to turn into Surtees there.
Yeah, Boguslawski just not quite getting the car balance on the entry into Surtees, but now on the run down through Pilgrim's Drop there we have the Bentley, which is, well, it was quickest and has now dropped to third because it's still Patrick Kujla in the Ferrari 124.909. He's got a 0.004 of a second advantage over the second place Mercedes.
Well, early this morning in the pre-qualifying, 3 of the bottom 4 cars were Ferraris, and so really good news for Flans fans of the prancing horse that certainly Rinaldi Racing's got it together, but it's not good enough because they're now 31 thousandths of a second behind the 26 Audi from Santaloc Racing. Can Bentley fight back? They went out nose to tail, but I thought one was going to tow one around and one do the other. But at the moment, we've got a Bentley, Pierre-Alexandre Jean in fourth.
And he stays there. So
yeah.
No improvement from the Bentley on that last lap.
Right, the good news is we do have both of the Aston Martins out. The Thomas Tuchel car, which is in 23rd, didn't do the pre-qualifying session at all. They were punished for causing an incident into Paddock Hill Bend, drove across the nose of Ollie Wilkinson's McLaren. Where is the McLaren? The McLaren is 8th at the moment in the hands of Ben Barnicoat. So we've got a real mix of cars. We've got Audi, Ferrari, Mercedes, Bentley. It's great.
Charles Vance in the 32 Audi comes across, goes 7th. That's not good enough. And he's got a little bit of traffic ahead of him. He's got personal bests in all three sectors. He's going to find it difficult to find a way around the Lamborghini, both powered by the same power unit, different branding, of course. So Charles Weerts will love to get that Audi up onto the front 2-3 rows of the grid, but currently down on the 4th row of the grid. That is a little bit in the middle of the danger zone into turn 1.
Well, Charles Weerts leading the championship with Dries Van Tor. In fact, of the 6 qualifying sessions so far this season, Charles the only driver to have taken pole twice. 1 pole apiece for Mauro Engel, Ricardo Feller, Raffaele Marcello, and the Pro-Am star, Johnny Adam, a pro in a Pro-Am car.
Joshua Pohaka in the number 7 Mercedes got a purple sector 1. So he's on another lap and he's got personal best. No, he's got the best overall. He's purple in sector 1. Alexander Pierre-Jean improves and in fact has gone quickest, considerably so. Well,
over a quarter of a second. I was saying at the start, I reckon we're going to be dealing in hundredths, if not thousandths of a second. That is a very, very tidy margin for the Bentleys. I said right at the start, the Bentleys were really nowhere this morning. No flashes of form, but suddenly they've done their sums right, and just when it wasn't looking like their season at all. And I think for British fans in particular, yes, it's a French team, but just great to see the Bentleys at the sharp end.
And this is going to change. We've got 12 minutes of the session remaining. Looking down, the only 2 that are showing green in the top 10 were Alexander Pierre-Jean. Now Ricardo Feller up into second place, just a 10th of a second now behind the Bentley.
I was just going to say, handful of cars in the pits, and I think this is it was the fastest car this morning, the number 6 Top Sport Mercedes, and I think that's them playing a very clever game, because they might have a lot more track space to play with as this session runs towards its conclusion, because the cars out there right now are probably not going to run the full 20 minutes out on the track. So they're playing it cool, playing it calm, but Lucas Stolz is only 22nd out of the 28 runners at the moment.
I mean, it's a brave decision for a team to roll the dice that way, because what you're unable to do is predict what could or may not happen, because a car goes off, you get a red flag, you get any number of different incidents that are beyond your control. And while you think by hanging back until the closing moments of Q1 may work to your advantage, well, if it's clear and everybody else is back in the pit lane, your quid's in, or I should say pound sterling in. Otherwise, you can end up starting at the tail of the field.
OK, well, Ricardo Feller is second at the moment in the number 14 Lamborghini. He's got his tail up. He's faster than anyone in that first sector of the 3. Now, Ben Barnicoat going for a bit of a charge. He's down in 9th place at the moment in the McLaren. He was 7th. He's fallen to 9th. This lap should be just about enough to move him up. Yes, up to 5th place. So, very good run. Last weekend, he was driving a Ferrari at Le Mans. This weekend, a McLaren at Brands Hatch. The drivers have to hop from foot to foot.
Well, I mean, if there'd been a McLaren at Le Mans, I would think he would have been in that car. But Ricardo Feller, one of the stars of the year, and was certainly starring in 2020, but he's continued that meteoric rise and looking to be ultimately maybe the lead driver. Poor Albert Costa, who probably on pace would have been, but we're seeing Ricardo Feller starring fastest overall.
By 0.002 of a second. I said it'd be dealt out to hundreds, if not thousands, and that really proves the point. So Pierre-Alexandre Jean in the pits, he's second. Aurélien Panis in the pits, he's third. Patrick Kugler in the pits, he's fourth. But Ben Barnicoat, as we saw, up to 5th place. Now let's ride on board the Sky Tempesta Ferrari. And at the moment, Chris Foggart down in 19th place and coming into the pits. The clock keeps counting down. 10 minutes remaining. We're halfway through the session.
Well, after this sort of wild rush for everybody to get out and get a time in, of course, everybody was conscious that the cloud base is low-ish and there is a dirty, big, black cloud hovering over the sort of one part of, well, I suppose you might call it the Grand Prix loop here at Brands Hatch, not indicating that it's going to release some of its moisture. McLaren comes across the line once again. Ben Barnicoat remains, I think, in 5th position.
He does, very close to his best. He's actually just got clear track ahead of him, so he's going to have to really try. If he's going to have any more pace out of the car, he's got to go for it right now. Championship leader by a very, very tiny margin. If everything works for Charles Vietz, who's just driving into the pits, he's down in 8th place at the moment. You know, they could wrap up the championship here this weekend with 3 wins out of the 6 races so far and good scores in the other one. But you don't want to be 8th, you want to be in those front 3 rows, or it's going to be really hard.
You just do not need to be in the what I would call the trouble zone, that bit between, let's say, 5th row of the grid back to the tail of the field. If something's going to kick off in the opening lap in maybe Paddock or Druids or wherever, it could easily be that it'll be on that opening lap, and you don't want to be a part of that. You could be driving, doing your own business, and you could be taken out by a loose cannon.
Right, whatever you think is going on out there, watch Lucas Stoltz. We said cool, calm, collected. He always is, but sitting in the pit lane waiting for a chance to go out to play. He's out on the track. 60% of the cars are in the pit lane. Is this a masterstroke from TalkSport WRT? The sister car is in 6th overall. I'll be hoping to put this one ahead. And for Stoltz and Engel, such a gold standard driver pairing. Right on it, faster than anyone.
Purple middle sector. He's got an Aston Martin directly ahead of him, but it's not going to come into play. It's not going to affect, oh, maybe it was one of the Mercedes. He's not going to come into play, and it goes into the pit lane. So Lucas Stoltz has got a clear run now to come across start-finish line. Was 23rd. Is he going to go into a provisional pole? Is he coming? Yes, he does. 24.427.
Job done. So a quarter of a second as near as can be. Can anybody else fight back? Just looking to see which of the other quick guns have yet to show their hand. Timo Boguslavski just come out of the pits the previous time around, and he is down in 11th place. We've seen great pace from him. He's 2nd on points in the championship. He and Raffaele Marcello have to be a very good shout. Raffaele will be going the 2nd qualifying stint. Santalot Racing, I don't think we've seen the last of their Audis. Look for Leo Roussel and Aurélien Panis. Great pace from them so far. But Lucas Stoltz, that time was inspired. 1 minute 24.4.
Again, done it in an understated fashion. It's not that neither Stoltz or Maro Engel are what I would describe as flamboyant in their driving style. Oh! Pierre-Alexander Jean, purple, sector 1. Has the Bentley had something left in the tank that they're going to throw the real maverick into this field? Gets up to the 2nd sector, coming up any second now. There's the white line. There it is. Fractionally down, 81 of a second down. Almost just about cancelling out by 3,000ths of a second. So can he improve on that provisional third position?
And just remember that 3rd position is only 2 1,000ths down on the best from Ricardo Feller. Ricardo in his Lamborghini is in the pits, and now for the mighty Bentley over the start-finish line. Will he go from 3rd to 2nd? Yes, he does. So just 0.159 of a second down on Lucas Stoltz. So the Bentleys were nowhere, but CMR should be very proud indeed. They've got it right at the right time.
Good lap up here, Alexander Jean. Again, the track relatively clear. We go back down to the number 6 Mercedes. Lucas Stoltz going out. They're to improve, but certainly to protect. Look, he's gone almost 1/10 and a half of a second up, but lost 3/10 in that middle sector. Runs the curb on the exit. That'll just knock another 1,000th of a second off the potential. Now he's only got this corner and the remains of Clark Curve to do something. You don't make up a lot of time here unless you've got a brand new set of rubber, which will give you that fractional benefit. Comes across the line. That's usually Gilberto's compact we're looking at. What am I talking about?
And Paris Compact goes from 13th up to 5th place. So he's fastest in the first sector, fastest in the final sector. He'll be ruining that middle sector, but 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as Meatloaf used to say. But Lucas Stoltz, still the fastest Mercedes, still the fastest car out there. 1 minute 24.427 seconds. Pierre-Alexandre Jean, 2nd for Bentley in the 107. And Patrick Kujla doing the job all over again in the Ferrari from Rinaldi Racing.
So Boguslavski now, again, having to work hard with the car in Westfield. 5 minutes of the session remaining. They've been in, they've done, I suspect, a little bit of a quick shoon up and chamois down. But most likely they've just put on a fresh set of rubber. Personal best. So Boguslavski is looking to improve from the current position, which is P12. Needs to be inside the top 3 or 4 rows of the grid.
Well, he certainly does, John. But you see what the difference is when the Bentley and the Stoltz Mercedes set their times, almost nobody was out on the track. Now the track's busy, but Boguslavski decent up into 3rd position. He's made it work.
Absolutely, great job by Thomas Boguslavski. That is a real fill-up for the team, and there's the car that their principal competitor in the championship, the 32 Audi, and that's still lingering down in 11th position. So Charles Verts has a mountain of work to do to get that car up into the second row of the grid or even higher.
He's all but 2/3 of a second down on the pace set by Lucas Stoltz. Just remember the target time, 1 minute 24.427 seconds, the best so far from Charles Verts. 1 minute 25 plus. This lap's not looking bad at all, but it's got to look very good. I don't see any purple times on the screen. He's very unlikely to go to the top, but can he move up into 3rd or 4th position? Just waiting. He goes first. He squeaked through by 14 thousandths. That was a brilliant. He wasn't fastest in any one of those 3 timing sectors, but his aggregate was the best of the lot.
Well, that was a great effort by Charles Verts. Pressure from the rest of the field to get that job done, and now provisionally quickest by, as you said, just 14 hundredths of a second. And who's going to challenge him? Well, those that might challenge him have probably used the best of what they have.
Ben Barnicut in the McLaren. He's 11th at the moment. He's fastest in the middle sector. Here he comes over the start-finish line. What will 11th turn into? Waiting for the time to flash up, but I think it's looking good. He goes up to the top of the charts. The McLaren, the one McLaren, top of the charts, the closest team to Brands Hatch Circuit from just south of Tunbridge Wells in front. And the driver puts it to the top. Well done, Ben Barnicut.
Well,
will it last?
Absolutely. There'll be a lot of very happy people in the Toyota team. And Peter, the father of Ollie Wilkinson, who will be in the car for Q2, he'll be standing there thinking, wow, what have I come down to watch today? Now I know what I'm doing for my son.
Yeah, and what's just also happened is Timo Bogoslawski has suddenly moved up into 2nd place. He got up to 3rd, it became 4th when the McLaren went top, but Bogoslawski within 64 thousandths. So he was the overall European champion last year, 2nd in the Sprint Cup. He's 2nd in the Sprint Cup this year, a big points deficit to Charles Verts, but importantly, he's ahead of him on the provisional grid. But we haven't finished yet. 2 minutes and 45 seconds remain.
It's hard to know where to look because there's so much action going on. We're not seeing any purples or greens of any consequence right now. Let's hope that there are 2 minutes remaining, there may be an even bigger shock coming our way.
Well, some of the drivers, they're going to have their times cancelled already. Current laps for cars 66 and 52 have been cancelled for track limits at turn 3. That's Graham Hill Bend. And the whole lap time has been cancelled as well for car number 30. That's Benjamin Goethe. He's had a rotten day, crashed in the bronze-silver practice session at the start of the day, trying to pick up the pace, but he's down in 24th out of 28 positions.
So Bogoslawski comes through and his time is way down in that middle sector. So 2 minutes remaining. If he gets a clear run, he might have another pop. Hopefully he's left a little bit of meat and speed in those Pirelli tyres. Up into Paddock Bend. Let's look and see whether he's backed out of it.
Yeah, considerably backing out. Pit lane, got a few runners in there, but all but 4 are out on the circuit, 24 cars. And at the moment, Kevin C bringing up the rear for Ram Racing on his debut at Brands Hatch with the team, etc., etc. So he's running in the Pro-Am class. In fact, Miguel Ramos in 23rd is the fastest of the Pro-Am runners. But Charles Verts trying to improve from 3rd place. He took that pole where we didn't think it was going to be pole, but just small fractions took him there. But he's now 0.072 of a second down on the pace set by Ben Barnicut. Ben's a little slower last time around, not that quick this time around, but for Charles Verts, he's really, with the clock counting down to just over a minute, he's really got to put it in this lap or the next one.
Well, just looking down the field, the 114 Lamborghini Costa Palanen, and we think we're always bigging up Ricardo Feller, who being now the quickest. Well, in fact, he's been overtaken. It's the number 114 Lamborghini in 6th place, the number 14 Ricardo Feller down at 9th place.
Well, it's going to be no time improvement. Ben Barnicut out of his car in the pit lane, but yeah, that's an interesting. Pierre-Alexandre Jean, we saw him go up right to the top of the charts. He's down in 5th place at the moment, but his teammate Nelson Pansatici is 24th. He's way off the pace, but of course that's still in terms of position. In terms of time, it's still, he's only a second slower. And as we talk about Lamborghini, suddenly Ricardo Feller responds and is equal to his previous best running through the 1st sector. Has he got traffic? No, he hasn't. And so he's got a lovely section of the circuit ahead of him. He's been through Sheen Curve, now through Stirling. How's his 2nd sector time? Waiting for that to flash up, but he's got to find 0.3 of a second, almost 1/3 of a second he's got to find to see if he can go to the top, but he's improving, that's all that can be asked. This is going to be very close indeed. Will he get it up on the front row? It's currently Barnicut and Tom Bogoslawski. They're in the pits, they can't respond. Ricardo Feller was 9th, goes 5th. Not quite onto the front row, but certainly a better job for the Lamborghini ace.
Yes, indeed, he'll be happier as we look at the McLaren, as the team just quietly just get on with the job of preparing this car for Oliver Wilkinson to take over for Q2. And Good job, well done by the Jota team.
Yeah, great variety. Just to reiterate, the checkered flag is now out, and we have a McLaren from a Mercedes, Audi, Mercedes, Lamborghini, Bentley. Good mix of cars. Top Ferrari, Patrick Kushler, the Rinaldi racing car, in 8th place. Just looking to see who else has had lap times cancelled, even as we speak. Car number 25, one of the Sansalot racing Audis, just finishing its lap, and that lap time's been taken away. That was Leah Russell. So track limits still have to be adhered to. And to wreck your best lap would be a real shame. Patrick Kushler very close to the best lap in that Ferrari, so the checkered flag out, but not everybody having taken it. Kushler could move up from 8th place, but no, his middle sector down by almost 2/3 of a second, so it won't be happening, and 8th place will surely be where he ends up, literally 2 or 3 cars on the circuit. But well done to Ben Barnicoat. That's the job done for him, but in such a quick turnaround here, John. Of course, it's now the turn of his teammate Ollie Wilkinson, but for Ben Barnicoat, a British driver, takes pole position for at least one of the 2 races at Brands Hatch.
Well, he's good. Look, you can see his face. He's delighted. That was a performance everybody, I think, would be very happy to see. We don't see McLaren as regularly as we do want to see in the Sprint Cup, but the Jota team have been supporting sprint and endurance throughout this year. As I mentioned, that great result they had in Spa 24 hours just about a month ago, and here they are now on that pole position for the first of the 2 sprint races come Sunday.
Well, fantastic job by the Jota crew, but particularly from the driver, who's just taken pole position. And Gemma Scott was as fast in the pit lane as Ben was, because she's caught up with our man, Ben Barnicoat.
Ben, fantastic charge, and you put it on pole.
Yeah, what can I say? It's my first pole position in GT World Challenge and Blancpain as it was previously, so great achievement for me, and to do it at home was that extra bit special. Big thanks to the boys at Jota and McLaren, couldn't have done it without them.
Absolutely. Well, now is the time to push in the race tomorrow, but very well done in qualifying. The pace is there.
Yeah, thank you. Looking forward to the race tomorrow. It's going to be tough. It's actually only my 2nd time ever racing here. I raced here in 2017, one of my first races in GT, so it's been a big learning curve, but really enjoying it, and great to get that result for everyone. So now hopefully Ollie can smash it on the front, and we can have 2 good ones tomorrow.
Absolutely, all eyes onto him now. Well
yeah,
done.
That's it. Thank you.
So let's take a look at the results. We know Ben Barnicoat's on pole. There's confirmation that McLaren from Jota, the 720S, 1 minute 24.341 seconds, 64 thousandths faster than Timo Bogoslawski managed. Charles Weerts, championship leader, didn't get his 3rd pole of the season, but 3rd place, a fine result after a mixed practice session. Lucas Stolz sat in the pits, went out when everyone else was coming in, and took what he thought was provisional pole, but then got moved down to 4th place overall. Ricardo Feller, a late charge, up from 9th to 5th. Right at the end. And Pierre-Alexandre Jean, the Bentleys were nowhere, but he really put it into the mix in the first of the 2 qualifying sessions. 20 minutes of magic. But for Ben Barnicoat at the top of the table, that was a job very, very well done indeed. 28 cars went out to play, and a few drivers down at the back end of the grid you would have expected to see nearer the front. Quite a few drivers had times taken away. That's why you see the likes of Leah Russell down on the 2nd of the timing pages in 16th place overall. And down at the tail of the field in the Pro-Am class, Alexander West, Kevin C, Valentin Pierberg, Louis Michels, all down at the back. But pole in the class went to Miguel Ramos in 23rd overall for Barwell Motorsports, so he takes the Pro-Am pole. And the sky is starting to clear above Brands Hatch. It was slightly mixed when the cars went out. They knew you had 20 minutes ahead of them, and they had to get a lap down quickly because it looked as though it may be about to have another little flurry of rain. So what tyres do they fit? Clearly slick tyres were what was required at the front. But the key element at the start was to get out, get a lap time in, don't get yourself caught up in traffic. Just there, seeing that very thing happening to Ezequiel Perez-Companc in the Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes. But what happened? Pierre-Alexandre Jean got his tail up very, very quickly and started lapping well with pace we hadn't seen from him before Bentley at this meeting. Charles Weerts maybe rattled a little bit there with a run into the gravel and out at Paddock Hill Bend. The Bentleys were still in the mix, but it was what was going to happen in the second half of qualifying that was on the minds of the drivers. When would they get track space? Ricardo Feller started to pick up the legs of the number 14 Lamborghini, but Ben Barnicoat started to come good in the McLaren went towards the front, and then the top place was taken by the number 6 Mercedes. It was the last car to come out and try and set a time, but Lucas Stolz did a fabulous job, and then the rivals started to fight back. Charles Weerts fleetingly went to the top of the chart, 0-0-1 on the windscreen, but it wasn't to prove to be enough, because Ben Barnicoat put the McLaren from Jota onto pole position, twitching his way into Paddock Hill Bend, but the job was done. Timo Bogoslawski pushed very hard indeed, but fist bumps all round for the Jota crew. McLaren takes the first pole. So, John, ahead of the second qualifying in this quick-fire format, the sky looks a little kinder to the drivers, maybe less to worry about in terms of a sudden flurry of rain.
And something looking skyward, the cloud has passed through. So any concerns about a track suddenly having one of those squalls that we have seen throughout the summer, they just come in so quickly and with such energy. That, I think, has passed, so everybody can think forward to what can we do in this second 20-minute qualifying session. Of course, we're going to see different drivers. I mean, we've got Oliver Wilkinson in the Jota McLaren. One would say probably he will not be quite at the level yet of Ben Barnicoat. But, you know, if he can get that car anywhere in the top 6, it will be a stunning performance. Elsewhere, you've got to look at Raffaele Marcello and the ASP Mercedes, Dries van Thor in the 32 Audi, and on it goes. There's just such a choice. Maro Engel in the number 6 TalkSport Mercedes as well. So I look down through the entry list. Where do I start? But more importantly, where do I have to stop? There's just too many choices.
Sport for choice, a good thing to be. Now, Stefan Riquelme, good to have him back racing here. He's had a few years away, but good to have Stefan. But it does seem the sister car, the 107, is the one that has had the pace so far. With a lot of drivers saying they have only limited experience at Brands Hatch, it's quite unusual to say the 19-year-old Ulysses de Pauw actually does in the other Bentley, because he raced here for 2 years in British Formula 3. But it's still quite a rare treat to go out onto the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, but it is about joining the dots and just not blotting your copybook around the circuit. So easy to get 2/3 of a good lap and then just fumble.
Yeah, but having done Formula 3 for a couple of seasons, somewhat different driving a Formula 3 car that weighs about 550 or something kilograms to a GT car weighing more than double that, and you know the levels of downforce vis-a-vis the weight of the car are probably fractionally more favouring the Formula 3 car. Nevertheless, these GT3 cars are generating levels of downforce unimaginable, 3-4 years ago.
It's been an extraordinary story, but in fact, having just said it's brighter and the weather's looking good, I just had a long shot down the pit lane, look towards Paddock Hill Bend. That's fully grey up behind our commentary position. We're on top of the grandstand on the outside of the circuit. Fabulous view, but we couldn't see the clouds. In fact, they're just coming over the roof now. We may have rain on the way. Now, one of the cars that really needs to pick up its legs, Nikolai Kjærgaard in the 159, one of the 2 Garage 59 Aston Martins. What can he do? So let's take a look. A ride round the circuit with Timo Bogoslawski, John.
Right, cross start finish line, the clock starts up the hill. You can't see the apex, you've got to anticipate it. Gets the car in, still left a little bit of room on the inside, runs to the outside, runs the curbing, but clean exit up the hill. Get your braking point spot on. Again, a slightly different line that maybe others use, making a 2 apex Druids hairpin, then down the hill, short sprint, then into Graham Hill Bend. You're fighting the car, not more on the exit to stop it overrunning and maybe getting a penalty. Then you can catch your breath for a couple of seconds before you get into Surtees. Get the nose in. Again, it's not really... I'd like to have seen the car maybe slightly sharper on the front end, but that's just a view from the commentary seat. I'm an armchair quarterback here this afternoon. Down the hill, then the rise up into Hawthorne Bend. Pretty good there, so nothing to complain about. Runs the exit, runs it perfectly fine. Then a short sprint down into Westfield, working hard again on the steering wheel. The lap is going so quickly. Down into Dingle Dell, then the rise up into Sheen Curve. Take a lot of track on the inside, does it absolutely perfectly. Then the short sprint down into Stirling's. Again, get the nose in, dig it in. Then run the car around the curve. Don't be greedy. Just take as enough as you can get away with. Then the short sprint down into Clearways. You can carry more speed in here if you've got the commitment and you're brave enough to do it. But a good exit out of Clearways through Clark Curve. Now, the run down to the start-finish line. This is going to be Timo Bogoslawski's best lap. Puts him second quickest onto the front row.
What you have to wonder, John, with great talk around that lap, where did those 64 thousandths of a second go? That was the margin of difference at the end.
Certainly I saw it in Paddock, maybe a couple of other places. I can't remember because it was just coming at you so quickly. I mean, those are the margins that you're talking about. And we're sitting here and saying, oh, look, he's lost the time there. These guys are right on the ragged edge. There's nothing left whatsoever. And if Timo Bergoslawski can do a time like that, then I would assume that there's a little bit more from the more experienced and arguably the quicker of the two drivers, Raffaele Marcello. But we don't know. It'll be about managing the traffic, managing your tyres. Are you going to hang back? It looks like the 32 Audi, for example, is waiting and letting the bulk of the field go.
I think Dries wants the drama. He wants to see if he can pop in pole time right at the end. Interesting, the TalkSport WRT Mercedes number 6 that held back in that first session was one of the first cars on the track. Maybe Maro Engels pointed to the pit crew, pointed to the cloud and said, that's dark, I want to get out. There could be rain coming. I've got to get a time in now. But for Dries van 't Schip, he's sitting in the pit lane. Ollie Wilkinson sitting in the pit lane in the McLaren that took pole for race 1. We have to put that behind us now. This is race 2. We're trying to define the grid for that. Raffaele Marcello already on a charge.
And he'll be on his outlap looking to come through Hawthorne as well as an outlap, but it's still important that you make your apexes. You get everything wheel perfect. You turn in. You're not too greedy on the inside. You're not too greedy at the exit. You want to keep those tyres also on this outlap. Don't run curves because you can damage your tyre by being too ambitious or too aggressive. So, 18 minutes to go. I'm running out of breath. Look at the wind blowing as they come down into Dingledell. So the number 6 Maro Engel, what's going on in the pit lane? So the 93 Sky Tempesta Ferrari. Oh yes, oh yes.
Oh, well, one has to feel...
I wonder what the lollipop man was thinking. Maybe he's thinking about a lollipop and not looking at the traffic coming down.
Or certainly a double espresso in the back of the garage. So no contact, but that probably wasn't the safest of releases. So fortunate, no damage done. But Raffaele Marcello is now onto his first flying lap. The outlap has been completed. He gets it turned in very nicely. Let's take a look, John. Take us down the hill with him to Graham Hill Bend.
Yes, into Graham Hill Bend. The car, I can't identify the car quite yet. What is it?
It's one of the Aston Martins.
So it stays well to the left as the 129.
It's Johnny Adams, so it's no slouch in an Aston Martin. He took pole last time out.
Now, no surprise, Raffaele Marcello is the first car that's on a flying lap. He's got the fastest first sector. So now onto the quickest part of the racetrack. Coming down into Pilgrim's Drop. There you see the drop is even more severe than it looks on camera. Then the rise up into Hawthorne. You can actually carry again a lot of speed because the incline, you lose a little bit of speed, but you can actually go quicker than you think you potentially could do, if that makes sense.
Well, Raffaele very, very good through Hawthorne. So he was very confident to go right out to the edge of the circuit. He's carrying his speed.
And look, I'm much right at the very edge. Again, there'll be a purple sector for the Mercedes. He's got 3, got the McLaren. Get out of the way. Oh no! Oh dear me, Ollie Wilkinson. You should have stayed where you were, not interfere. But now he's got the Gulf Audi just directly ahead of him, so it'll be a good lap, but not potentially. Well, a 23.666. That's the quickest lap we've seen so far. The best in qualifying one was 24.3.
24.3, 23.6. Yeah, so we thought there might be pace in the car, but absolutely clearly is. Only one driver has set a flying lap yet, and that's Raffaele Marcello. Just got on the job very, very quickly.
And Bruce, he may have had to momentarily just breathe the throttle when the McLaren was sort of going one way, then back the other way. But that is a stellar standout lap from the Italian, and really, that's a marker. He can actually I would say, sit back and see the next best time is Maro Engel, almost a full second slower than Raffaele Marcello.
Well, I didn't see Maro getting caught in traffic. You'd have to hope from his point of view that he was a little bit and compromised, because that is a gargantuan difference.
Bruce, the top 5 are Mercedes. Now Fontana has just popped one up. Now also
Julius
Depo's got. So at one point there were 5 Mercedes in the top 5.
Well, we did say at the start of qualifying that Mercedes had looked good, but we hadn't had enough clear running to really get the true picture. Was that the uniform story? Was it because some of them used a fresh set of rubber when others didn't? But with Raffaele Marcello on provisional pole position, his ASP teammate Jules Gounon alongside him, it's looking very good for Jules Polycon team, and their third car is all the way down in 4th place. With another Mercedes in between, Maro Engel. Now, track space is everything, and it's getting a little compromised there for Jules Gounon.
Yeah, and he's not going to be very happy running behind.
And Dries van 't Schip pops up into 2nd place. Championship leader. Was one of the last cars out of the pit lane. He's obviously found the track space and the speed to go with it.
Yeah, but Jules Gounon struggling to find a way around the Audi, and I don't think there's going to be any concession given to Gounon. So he's lost 7/10 of a second. He was up 2/10 on that first sector. So now he's going to have to just be patient, not get hot under the collar, under the hands device.
I see what you did there, John. Very good indeed. Maro Engel suddenly moves ahead of Dries van Tor, so it's 2 Mercedes on the front row again. Oscar Tunjo, good lap for him in his Mercedes, up to 4th, and it's changing so fast.
Jim Pla now up to 3rd place in the ACA ASP. These ACA ASP cars 1st and 3rd. Maro Engel 2nd, Dries van Tor 4th. And again, we've still got over 14 minutes to go. Fred Vervies, Green currently in 18th place. And where's Fred Vervies going to go? Jimmy Pla stays in 3rd place. The timing and scoring can barely keep up with the speed at which lap times are being recorded.
There's almost too much information coming in too quickly. Let's just complete this lap with Fred Vervies. Chancelot Racing always develop a good car, only goes up to 15th place, so the Audi not really where it would want to be at all. Best Audi. Importantly for Team WRT, it's their championship leading car is in 4th place at the minute. There may be challenges from sister cars from other crews. Of course, Christopher Haas has raced here many times. He's only down in 10th place. He's not improving on this lap. Time to move away. Who is improving on this lap? Oh, it's Raffaele Marciello, who's fastest forwards. Just put in the fastest first sector. He's 0.4 of a second to the good over Maro Engel. Middle sector not so good. In fact, his time would have been good for 5th on the grid, but it's no good to him. He's still got the fastest time.
Maro Engel looking to find an improvement on current front row position, provisional front row position. Brings the gap down to 0.2 of a second between himself and Marciello. It is an improvement, but he can't improve an actual grid slot. But on the front row of the grid, that's probably where he wants to be.
But he's not on the front row of the grid by the time you ended the sentence. Oscar Tunjo in the 2nd of the sister car from TalkSport WRT goes ahead. The Colombian, a fantastic lap. So we've got 3 drivers below 1 minute 24. It's Raffaele Marciello in his Mercedes. There's the theme coming here. Oscar Tunjo in his Mercedes in 2nd, and Maro Engel in his Mercedes in 3rd. Jim Pla goes up into 4th ahead of Dries van Tor. So it's first 2 rows to Mercedes.
Yeah, and they've just got a grip, a lock. And is it me, or is it just suddenly getting very dark? All of it's as if somebody turned the lights out. There's just a large cloud has come over the commentary booth. No sign of rain or nothing on the cameras around the racetrack. But certainly drivers, they've been warned that they've got to run headlights. It's effectively probably been declared a wet session. The wind is picking up, so wind and cloud often leads to one thing.
Oh dear, there's a warning time on the screen from the first session. Car 90 reported to the stewards for speeding in the pit lane. Luckily for him, it's Ezekiel Porras-Compang. It's his team, so he'll have to give himself a kick. Car 93 has been reported as running wide at turn 4, which is Surtees, and car 93 is a Sky Tempesta Racing Ferrari with Giorgio Roda at the wheel. In fact, he's slowest of all at the moment. He's at the bottom of the charts, 3.8 seconds. And apparently it's raining in the pit, so it was important to get that time in very early on. So the big black cloud, as you say, as it comes over our head, John, it really is starting to drop. So it was imperative to get out very early and set the fast time.
Yes, I mean certainly some teams will have a meteorological facility with the team, and there you can see the rain is actually falling, and that is qualifying. Q2 is over Red Rover, and nobody is going anywhere because there's no point in putting on a set of wet weather tyres other than it's sometimes information gathering. And once we've now got the grid that ain't going to change, but maybe I'm being a little bit.
I think you could be slightly pessimistic, John, because someone, I think, who hasn't managed to set a decent time yet may actually have a clear bit of track, and that could be what compromised it by half a second, which in this grid could drop you half a dozen places. So
the question is it raining only in the pit lane and therefore on the pit straight itself, or the wipers certainly going on the 88 as it came up the hill, or is it raining over the entire circuit? Another good time is Benjamin Hites in the 33, and that's up to 10th position, so that's the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari. Good to see a Ferrari inside the top 10.
Well, what we haven't heralded is the great performance of Enrique Chavez, 6th fastest, top Pro-Am runner, and the car that could possibly challenge him, the 188 car of Johnny Adams, is down in 14th place. Johnny knows this circuit really well, so that really is an accolade to Chavez. Barwell Motorsport will be very pleased with that. 6th at anybody's reckoning is good in such a competitive field, but for a Pro-Am runner to do it at the top, yeah, rain around the back of the track, so it's pretty much all the way around.
And just you need to be cautious because your first lap through in different track conditions, and you can hear that Marciello is way off the throttle. He knows that he cannot improve on his lap time, or the car cannot improve on his provisional pole position, so he just needs to read what's going on. I mean, it could do this on Sunday afternoon. You never know. These squalls are, they can hit at any time. This could be in the middle of one of the 2 1-hour sprint events, and all of a sudden if you haven't got that little bit of knowledge and information, how does the racetrack respond? Now it's coming down much more heavily in the pit lane, as you can see.
Only 5 cars in the pit lane. Now, just looking up and down the pit lane, let's start with the car we can see closest to us. That's Oliver Wilkinson. Was one of the last cars out, and it hasn't worked for him. He hasn't got a time in. That car's got pole for race 1 tomorrow, but he's down in 18th place of the 28 runners, so they should have gone out sooner.
Yeah, I mean, you roll the dice. You've got to make your choices, and you decide at what point should I send who's ever driver, and maybe they just were one of the number of teams that have been caught out. This rain, you could sense that I mean, literally, I thought you turned the lights out on the commentary booth. Suddenly it went all very dark. But it wasn't me, it was nature up above us, and now it's decided to just put a little bit of moisture down on the racetrack. Everybody's back into the pit lane and sitting there. We've got still 9 minutes to go.
Yeah, but what it goes to prove, John, is the fact that just before we spotted the dark clouds over above Paddock Hill Bend to the right-hand side from the commentary box, the view up towards Clark Curve, it was getting much, much brighter. So some of the teams may have taken their eye off the ball for literally 2 minutes. The weather's come through faster than they thought, and they've been caught out. So just spotted Dries van Tor hopping out from 32. He's the championship leader. He's 5th. I think that's actually not a bad place to be, because he was one of the later cars out. He went out half a lap after the others, but he got clear track. For the Mercedes, it's almost as they don't need clear track because they've been on such strong form at Brands Hatch.
Yeah, but I bet
they got the timing.
I bet you Dries van Thor is hopping furious, because he will use every lap, every opportunity to try and put a WRT Audi onto that coveted pole position. He wants to consolidate the lead they've got. He doesn't want to get embroiled. I mean, okay, he's starting down on the 3rd row of the grid alongside Enrique Chavez, who is in a different category. So that actually would indicate that if Chavez and Van Thor sit and have a little conversation before the second of these 2 events tomorrow afternoon gets underway, they don't need to race one another, because Chavez's nearest competitor is all the way down in the 7th row of the grid, and that's Johnny Adam. So your competitors don't necessarily race every single car that is around you.
No, but still, over the years, over the decades, John, that charge to Brands Hatch, then into the compression and up to Druids. I defy drivers not to try and overtake people. If there's half a sniff of an opportunity, they always have, they always will. Of course, that championship battle has to be in their mind. So drivers remaining cheery up and down the pit lane. Giorgio Roda probably the least so, because he's at the bottom of the charts, but the clock is counting down. He hasn't really got any chance, well, he hasn't got any tyres at the moment, to improve on that. But he, of course, is running in the Silver Cup class, but being at the tail, there's only one way from there, and that's forward.
I don't want to sort of keep focusing on what the rain is doing, but I think the rain might have passed as passed through.
Who's going to jump? Of course, just after the rain came, we saw Raffaele Marcello go around for an exploratory lap. 4, possibly 5 cars went out, but they came straight back in. But it's light, it's dark, it's grey, it's slightly lighter. I'm sure we're going to have some cars going out towards the end of this session, because it is starting to brighten up a bit. But with cars not going around the track, it means it stays greasy for longer. Who needs to learn? All the running this morning was in dry conditions, with a little smattering of rain, drizzle at best out at Hawthorns and Westfield. There's the view from Paddock Hill Bend back up. Good to see the paddock so full on the right-hand side, but grey clouds behind us, moving, I think, to the north of the circuit now.
Well, we're certainly getting plenty of meteorological shots as we look into the pit lane, and not a car on racetrack. It's just over 6 minutes remaining. Questionable if anybody would go out with 3 minutes to go for an exploratory lap, because you could do the out lap, and if you thought conditions were fair enough, as Dries van Thor in the pits talking to Vincent Vos, Charles Verrett's the long, tall, we keep calling him young, but he's not actually young any longer. He's probably about 18 now. That's old by racing's judgments. So Dries van Thor, is he going to get back in again? Takes off his jacket, and what's going to go on? Is he going to have a look, or is he going to say, I think that's what we've got, we haven't got a lot more? Earplugs are going in, so he's got plenty of time to get the helmet on and into the car.
Just waiting for the instruction, waiting for the sign. Is he going to put his jacket back on? There's good humour.
Are we are not going to go? But he's getting a balaclava, so he's going to have another go, and he's going to go out and probably get one flying lap, one out lap, and then have one single flying lap, and he'll have to come across the line any time up to the point when the checkered flag goes out, because then he can go on and continue, finish that lap. It's going to be a nip and tuck.
Arthur Rougier staying on board the 114, one of the 3 Lamborghinis from Emil Frey Racing. He's determined to get going, and with good reason, because he's not where he wants to be. Arthur Rougier brought in this weekend to stand in for Jack Aitken, still injured after his shunt in the Spa 24 Hours, and Rougier down in 26th position, so he's definitely one of the drivers that you would think would go out and just have one last shot to try and improve position.
Well, hear the rumble of a V8 in the pit lane, and cars are beginning to roll.
The Ferrari is the first one out. When I say the Ferrari, I mean the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari. No, it isn't. In fact, the Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes has headed out at the front of a short queue, just the 2 cars. So, and just seeing who else it does. So it's Andrea Bertolini in the 52 Pro-Am Ferrari and Rick Breukers in the Mad Panda 90 Mercedes going on to the circuit. Of course, they might be coming through as the Emil Frey Lamborghinis. At least 2 of them scramble. So what's on the clock? 4 minutes and 10 seconds. How many drivers are going to get round in time to do 1 flying lap, possibly even 2?
At the minute, they will just about to come across the line. It'll take, as normally it's a 1 minute 24, let's say, for a flying lap. So an out lap and whatever the pace they will run at an out lap, you're looking probably somewhere around about 1 minute 40. So that will give them time, the first of the cars to leave the pits. They might just squeak 2 flying laps.
So cars going onto track, but let's hear from the boss of Team WRT. He's always got a lot to say. He's got 3 cars here. He's fresh from great success at Le Mans, but let's hear his thoughts with Gemma Scott.
Vincent, we saw Dries get out of the car and then prepare to get back into the car. What's happening?
Yeah, well, never know. It's drying quite quickly. Let's see what we can do. I don't think we can improve, but we never know.
You said to me earlier, Dries is going to drive the lap of his life. Do you think he's got it in him to get the Audi up there and competitive with the Mercedes?
Well, at least he will get the first of the Audi.
Thank you.
So fighting there from Vincent with his spectacles steaming up. Such a problem with masks, but obviously still maintaining that in the pit lane. So let's just point out the time to beat is 1 minute 23.660 seconds. That's Raffaele Marcello, provisional pole. He's just over a quarter of a second clear of another Mercedes. In fact, the 2 Mercedes from TopSport WRT, Oscar Tunjo and Maro Engel. So that's real accolade for Oscar. He really nailed it. He has these flashes of speed, and that was clearly inspired from him. Now, the Ferrari, Andrea Bertolini, trying to work its way through traffic. That was the first car out of the pits, but he's coming across drivers on their out lap while he's trying to get onto a flying lap, so it could be slightly compromised there.
So what we need to keep an eye on timing and scoring is the first driver in this group of cars with just over 2 minutes and a little less than seconds to go. Who's going to go purple? Who's going to go green? That will give us an indication if there is speed in the racetrack and speed in these drivers.
Just taking a look. So it's just the first few cars out of the pits, as we pointed out, who will be able to squeak in 2 flying laps. Johnny Adam among the rank. Don't forget, he took a pole last time he did a qualifying session in the Sprint Series. That was at Misano. Windscreen wipers going. Is that a confidence thing while he's still clearing what was in the pits? I think it's going to be very, very difficult. But look, Johnny Adam is the first driver to improve on his previous best. But in fairness, he didn't get the time together he wanted in the first part of the session. He's 14th on the time charts. It still looks as there's rain falling, John.
Well, not just that, he's got 2 cars ahead of him, and they're most likely going to come into play coming up to the completion of this flying lap. It's just always, again, it's the Gulf Audi. So coming into Sterling's, he needs the Audi to step aside and to show, well, what is going on?
Which side do you want to go? I think Christopher Meese, are unusual for him to do that. And Johnny Adams, faster in the first sector and the second sector. The third one's going to be a compromise. Yes, he's got a toe here, but he wanted to go past. He wanted to take the line he did. I still think that will move him up the order a little bit, waiting for that time. Up to 9th place. Okay, up onto row number 5. It could have been better. Timo Bogoslawski watching on from the ACA ASP garage, but he doesn't have to look far because his driver is in the garage. Well, not in the garage. Raffaele Marcello not on the circuit, not bothering. He's sitting on that advantage of 0.26 of a second at the top of the charts.
Well, I think that's probably the decision that was made. They just went through the process. If they needed to jump in, then he was available and ready to do so.
But he could suffer because Christopher Haase is fastest of all in the first sector. It's the number 25 Santalok Racing Audi. We're riding on board with Dries van Tor. He's staying in 5th place at the moment. No improvements coming yet. 12 seconds until the checkered flag will come down. So he will take the checkered flag on this flying lap. He won't be one of the drivers who had the luxury of 2 flying laps on this track that's just starting to dry. In fact, it's drying very quickly indeed.
He needs to find a couple of tenths to make any significant improvement. He does. He goes second quickest.
And I don't think he's going to be the fastest Audi, because it looks as though Christopher Haase is going faster than anybody. He's fastest in the first sector. Now Fred Vervisch in the other Santalok Racing Audi is fastest in the first sector. Christopher Haase, he's 14th. He's not going to remain there. Look, he's taking great chunks of time off. Will he go ahead of Marcello to take pole? Into 6th place. It looked good, and it just backed off a little bit in that final sector. What can his teammate Fred Vervisch do? So suddenly look down at Raffaele Marcello and his teammate Timo Bogusławski, suddenly a little bit nervous. They must have thought when the rain came it was all theirs. Van Tor in that second place. He's just 0.02 of a second down. Windscreen wipers blazing away for Maro Engel. He's in 4th place at the moment, not looking to improve, not managing to improve.
Another Mercedes 89 Jules Gounon purple in the sector 2. So unlikely to see any significant move. Well, he's just fractionally down in sector 1. You're talking about, well, he's countered that by being fractionally up in sector 2. So down now into 5th place. So can Maro Engel find? He needs to find 0.02 of a second to get himself back on to the second row of the grid. Comes through the last 2 turns, drives it across start finish line. What will the time be?
Are we looking at a front row start? Yes, we are. So it's Mercedes and Mercedes. It's Marcello and Engel at the very top. So that was almost how the order was in the very early start of the session. But then with the interruptions, suddenly we had the Audi coming to the top. So Dries van Tor will be starting from 3rd on the grid. Jules Gounon 4th. Oscar Tunjo 5th.
And I tell you, that lap of Maro Engel was a threat, a serious threat to Marcello's lap. He was only 91/100 of a second away from securing pole position. It was a roll of the dice, a gamble for the ACA ASP team. Marcello there, you can see he realises that was a lot closer than we anticipated. But what matters is he is on pole position for race 2 Sunday afternoon.
Job well done. That was really, really tricky. So you might be brave by not taking the decision not to go out, or you might be foolish. And I think a lot of the teams are really caught out with just how quickly that broke away. But it's a second pole position of the year for Raffaele Marcello. And that was a nervous moment waiting down in the pits while the final cars blazed around the track. Fred Vervisch, I thought, might be able to do it, but he actually only improved by 1 position to 13th with a poor end to his lap. But there were pink times out there, meaning people were going faster than even Raffaele had managed. But he managed to string it all together, and his pole time in the end 0.091 of a second clear of Maro Engel. So let's go down. The driver of Car T8, Raffaele Marcello, he's down in the pit lane. He is the pole starter for race 2. He's with Gemma Scott.
Raffaele, a perfect qualifying. Well done.
Yeah, it was a good quali. Had a bit of traffic in my first lap in last sector, but I mean we had a nice gap. Then it started to rain a bit, so I mean we take the gamble to save 1 tire for tomorrow and do only 1 stint. And yeah, it worked out, so yeah, quite nice.
Yeah, a difficult gamble to take, but seeing you sat there in the car just until those final few moments.
Yeah, I mean if it was fully dry, for sure I was going out, but I thought the track was not perfect, so we said like we just risk and see, and yeah, it was nice.
Hard work starts tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So it was a gamble, but it was a gamble that paid off for ACA ASP. And taking a lot of the top positions, 3 of the top 7 were ACA ASP Mercedes. But the fastest of all was Raffaele Marcello, 1:23.660, 91 thousandths of a second faster than the charging Maro Engel. Dries van Tor was down the order, stuck it right to the top, but then those 2 Mercedes went faster. He is the championship leader Jules Gounon, another smile on the face for ACA ASP. He was 4th fastest. Another smile for Talksport WRT is 5th. And Riachira Tomita on his first appearance at Brands Hatch. What a run to 6th place overall in his WRT Audi. Jim Plar in the 3rd of the ACA ASP Mercedes in 7th place. It's worth pointing out, by the way, Oscar Tunjo fastest in the Silver Cup class and fastest, 9th overall, fastest in Prime. What a fantastic run for Enrique Chavez for Barwell Motorsport. 2 places ahead of Johnny Adam, who one would have expected to take that Pro-Am class pole. Christopher Mies caught between them in 10th place, but really that was a session of trying to get it right in traffic, trying to get it right in the range. So turning over to the second page to run from cars 16 to 28 in qualifying session, and just looking to see the McLaren that's on pole for race 1 tomorrow. It didn't get a good time in the end for Oliver Wilkinson, so just a second down on the ultimate pace, but down in 18th place. That shows how competitive the fields can be here at Brands Hatch. It's always super tight, and bar the last handful of cars, really 1 and a bit seconds covers the whole lot. But let's go next to take a look at a very, very special lap set by a very, very special Italian. It's Raffaele Marciello. It's the driver who's taken pole position. John, take us around.
Well, let's ride with the maestro here at Brands Hatch. Start-finish line, then the run-up into Paddock Bend. Everything very, I would say, very controlled by Raffaele Marciello standards. Sometimes he is very exciting to watch, but he's got to think forward to the traffic, gets the nose in, hugs the way around. That's the favourite way around grooves, in my opinion. Now he's got to worry about, where am I going to catch the car directly ahead of me? Is it going to be, it is, it's the Aston Martin. It stays well to the left. So through Graham Hill Bend, now the run down into Surtees. Takes that very late apex, gets the nose in. Not quite as tight as you can do, but again, a good exit, good drive off Surtees. Then all the way up to 245, 250 kilometres, down Pilgrim's Drop, then the climb up into Hawthorns, down a gear. Feathers the throttle initially to stabilise the car, then hard on the throttle at the exit of Hawthorn, then a quick dab in the brakes, nose in. Here it all comes at you so quickly. Then down into Dingledale, and watch for Sheen Curve, take a lock, launch it into Sheen Curve, run the curve on the white line on the exit. Now the traffic ahead of him, this is the problem. He's got the McLaren, what side is it going to go? It goes one side, then it goes to the other side. Raffaele took a gamble, he got away with it. And again, he's got an Audi directly ahead of him. All this is going to be frustrating, if not angering the Italian, because he feels, I could have been even quicker than that wonderful pole lap that he just achieved.
Well, fantastic lap, and the compromises at the end, but with 28 cars trying to fit themselves onto the circuit at Brands Hatch, there's always going to be compromise somewhere, but he kept his foot in. The only real scare for him must have been right at the end when he was sitting in the pit lane and other drivers were in those dying seconds of practice just starting to close on in his time, but 91 thousandths of a second was enough for him to hold on to his second pole of the season in the Sprint Cup of the GT World Challenge Europe, brought to you by AWS, powered by AWS. So the circuit is dry now. The sky is brightening up, but let's go back and take a look at the highlights of the second qualifying session. 20 minutes to go out and play, and the dark clouds in the distance were coming in quite quickly, so almost all the field decided to get out early and get a banker lap on the board. And there was a little bit of a moment where the Sky Tempesta Ferrari pulled out very close to another car, one of the Attento Racing Audis, and I'm sure the stewards will look for that. And very early on, Raffaele Marciello decided he had to get that time on the board. His teammate at the 89 Ferrari was also out there really charging around the lap. That was Jules Gounon. And then it was a time to just think about, what are we going to do? The conditions are changing. The windscreen wipers are on. Do we go back out? Do we not? Marciello went and had one investigation lap, brought it back and sat in the pits and waited. The others waited, but they went back out. He didn't. And suddenly Mauro Engel was starting to make a charge. He was getting closer and closer. Dries van Tor was fifth. He worked his way to the top, but then he got shunted back down. And right at the end, Raffaele Marciello, probably chewing his fingernails, ended up as the fastest of all to take pole.